Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo, and today I bring you a different kind of video. As you know, I've been experimenting and showing you videos about FSR, DLSS versus native, different resolutions, and so on. However, this video is going to be a little bit different because this started as an experiment for me, like a way to put the DLSS AI and FSR technologies to the limit. Just I was curious to see, what we get. And I have to say, I am more surprised than I was expecting to. Because at the beginning, I thought I was going to get a mess. And the results are honestly better than I was imagining. And I think shows us what is going to be the future of graphics. I think this is an important step towards getting more graphics out of the chips, because GPUs are not going to get faster and faster and faster, at least not at the level that games are getting better and better and better, especially when we combine that with the resolutions and frame rates we are playing now. So this video is not like a scientific thing. It's just like a perception of what I saw while I was testing this. So we're going to see a mix of comparisons and gameplay videos. But I think if you listen to what I'm going to say during those videos and explain to you why it's so surprising for me, you're going to enjoy the video, you're going to get fun out of it, of watching the images, but also you're going to probably be as surprised as me. So let's get to the video. So what is this video about? Well, this video is about taking Dlss and FSR and AI to the limit. So I thought, why won't I play some games at 1080p and then use ultra performance as the level to reconstruct? To explain this to you, ultra performance what works at a resolution, internal resolution of 640 by 360. If you multiply that, that's only 230,000 pixels, or around something like that. And we are taking those pixels and we are expanding them to 2 million pixels to make the 1080p image. So when you think about it, we are only using 10% of the total pixels to create the image. And that's insane. So I wanted to test it. I thought it was going to be fun, but the results are quite surprising. And I think it shows a little bit of what's going to be the future of gaming. Because when we see here, the 1080p native is on the left, the DLSS is on the middle, and FSR is on the right, you can see the difference in reconstruction. Yes, there is no doubt that 1080p, especially now we are using a static image, and we're going to check videos after, but we can see clearly that 1080p looks better, right? However, I won't say that DLSS looks extremely bad. There are things that because of the contrast that it creates, it sort of looks better, because for some reason it's creating these very dark pixels, like very dark edges. But in some cases, like in vegetation, I tend to think that it kind of looks better. FSR is not doing a bad job here either. Some things are even better than DLSS from my point of view. But for example, here on the trees, I think DLSS still looks better than even native. However, there are some areas, like for example this window here, as you can see, the native image is better, and the DLSS image tends to create all these sort of hard edge of pixels here. FSR is sort of doing the same, but it's also like softening them, which I think is gives a more pleasant look to them. However, some other areas are not as good. For example, if you see here, we can see in this unit that is more detail here in this area than it is on FSR, which has almost blur everything. And the same happens with the vegetation, as you can see here. But remember, we are reconstructing from only 640 by 360, which is insane if you ask me, okay? If we go up here, I'm going to show you something quite interesting. So you see the power lines. The power lines here, they are quite very good reconstructed, I will say, but not so much on FSR, which, well, it's okay, I guess, but there tends to be a little bit more noise in these areas. You can see here that it's not complete. Well, it is complete on the DLSS, and obviously on native. However, I say obviously, but it's not so obvious. If you look at something, look, the cable connecting to the transformer here, it doesn't exist on the native or the FSR version of it, but it does on the DLSS. So that means that DLSS, by getting the information from the C buffer of the game and the geometry, is able to reconstruct better information that is not there even at 1080p, or you can see, because there is not enough pixels. To me, that's really insane. And in general, when you're looking at a distance and a normal, honestly, it doesn't look that bad. I'm not saying you should play like this, okay? No, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm taking these technologies to the limit just because I'm trying to see, you know, if we can break them, or how bad or good they are when we do things like this. Unfortunately, I cannot take that to 4K. It will be interesting to be able to reconstruct from 360 to 4K. I think there is hacks that will allow me to do something like that, but right now I'm just testing with the normal implementations on games, okay? So yeah, so this is the first game I'm testing, and I'm going to be showing you some more using videos and gameplay so you understand better where I'm coming from. Okay, so as always, I'm going to use Dying Light to test this. And look at this. This is, I don't know, guys, but for me, this is actually insane. So here we have the 1080p native image, and the other two are on performance mode, not ultra performance, because Dying Light 2 doesn't allow you to go that low when testing at 1080p. However, even then, we're reconstructing from 960 by 540, if I don't remember wrong, to 1080p, which is still a lot less than even, I think it's less than 700,000. I haven't done the math, but this is still reconstructing from very low. And look at this. When we check the image, it's just insane. I'm showing you a video because people say still images are bad, but look, I think this still looks quite good, all things considered. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should play at ultra performance. What I'm trying to show you is this is just the beginning of something, because I'm going to push this technology even more in the next video to show you something interesting. Where I think we're going to be in some years from now. If this is what we are getting now, start thinking where we're going to be getting in 5 years. And I think you will understand me better once we move out of this. And look, as I said, I think the image here is quite comparable if we check every detail. Look, we're talking reconstruction that is actually quite playable. People say and always repeat, oh, this is bad and bad, but they don't testing. They just listen to people that, you know, get RTX 4090 that are given to them, and then they obviously are always telling you, it's bad to play in this way or that other way. But they are not thinking of the people that can't spend the money on a 4090 but still want to have a good gaming experience. And that's something that really bothers me, because it's always like saying you shouldn't do this because it's bad. And when it's not necessarily true. I'm not saying you should play like this, but sometimes what's the problem? It's perfectly fine. It's playable. You can understand everything that's going on it, and you're not missing anything. Yeah, it may not look as crisp as native. It may not be as nice as native, but still, look at the images. Are you telling me that this is not good? It's not playable? Imagine somebody being able to play like this with a $100 hardware or something like that. So that's the point. That's, I think, is the important part of this that many of the people testing miss. It's always about, oh no, I'm making feel like inferior if you use certain things because you shouldn't be playing like this, when I don't see anything wrong. I mean, if you can look, I think it looks quite good. I'm going to show you why I think this is so important on the next video, because I think this is a very important matter that I want to show you. What I'm showing you here is Dying Light 2 with DLSS in performance mode plus frame generation on, and we are getting above 240 FPS, which is insane when you think about it, because the quality of everything I'm seeing is still incredible considering that essentially 5 to 10% of the image is the only part that is actually created by the game. Everything else is created by AI or inferred by a previous image using temporal solutions. So only 5 to 10% is actually rendered. Most of the image is not, let's say, real in the sense that it's not created by the game but created by another part of the GPU. And this is why I'm saying this is so important for the future of gaming, because if you can reconstruct from so low and also interpolate frames to try to get as much performance and image quality from so little, then it means you can create better and better and more charged worlds because you don't need to render or brute force so much. I think this is extremely playable. Here you can see the same thing in Spider-Man Miles Morales. You can see the game looks quite good still, even in that ultra performance mode. This is not performance as Dying Light, this is ultra performance. And I will dare to say that yes, the game is not perfect, but still is a very, very good. Now imagine if you can do this with very low hardware. I mean, you don't need so much power, so much rendering, and maybe $100 GPU will be able to give you this sort of performance, this sort of gameplay, this sort of visuals. Then you can activate ray tracing. This is obviously using every single ray tracing option that the game offers and more. So this, from my point of view, is still something quite good. All things considered, from where the reconstruction is coming and from where everything's happening. Okay, so the next game I'm going to be testing is Returnal, the benchmark, because it has a benchmark, but also because I believe it's a very difficult game to reconstruct because of the type of game and also the fact that everything is so dark. So that creates additional problems to these techniques to reconstruct, okay? So as you can see here, clearly FSR is having a very bad time here. You can still make what it's supposed to be showing, but it's not very good. I don't know if this is because of a bad implementation or because it's really hard for FSR to be able to reconstruct the image. While Dlss is obviously not as good as native in this case, we have seen better before, but I still think it's quite decent considering that we are going from ultra performance. And I can show you this because here, if you see, we are using 33% level of reconstruction on both sides. So that means, but what is important is to see in some points how much performance we gain. And that's the part that I'm trying to talk about, the future of graphics when I say this, because the performance, you can see 200 is 40-50 FPS more, and probably I'm limited by the CPU. So the thing is that we are reconstructing from a 33%, okay? And as we've seen before, it's not just the fact that we're reconstructing for 33%, which means that the rest of it is basically created, generated by the algorithm on FSR or by the AI. Is that we also can, as we've seen before, add the frame generation, and basically we are only actually rendering around 5% of the actual game, and the rest is just created by essentially nothing, just inferring, just using AI, which is the point that I'm trying to make. We are getting some frame rates that there will no way we will get any other way if it wasn't because we're basically only rendering 5% of the game. We're rendering 33% here plus an extra frame when we're using frame generation, so that's between 5% and 10% around. So that's insane when you think about it. The game is not actually making those graphics. In this here, you can see how bad FSR is because we lose a lot of details, like a lot. You can see here how smeary it is, and the Dlss is a little bit better, and here is the native, which is the one that obviously looks the best in this particular game. But I still will insist, if we keep checking this, that going from such a low resolution to this point, I find it quite impressive, and it's probably what is going to be in the future if we want better and better graphics, especially now that a small uplift like ray tracing, which only adds a little bit to some people accordingly, of graphics, and it's not necessarily, but it's that little uplift requires so much power that at the end of the day, if you want to have that uplift and also have good frame rate, we have to use all these techniques. And I think in the future, because games are advancing quite fast, this is going to be crucial to keep with the times. For example, let's see The Witcher 3. This is the next gen version running with every single ray trace option maxed out and everything maxed out. Okay, 1080p, DLSS, ultra performance, and frame generation on. You know, many people will prefer to have this sort of experience, even if they have to sacrifice some clarity for more visual rendering features. And I will dare to say that this looks much better than the Switch version of the game. So the Switch version had to sacrifice a lot in order to be able to fit on the Switch, and it's still running at 30 FPS. While here we're running above 100 FPS with ray tracing and everything, and all we're sacrificing is a little bit of clarity, and also, of course, using frame generation, which may create input lag on some sort of artifacting from time to time. But because of the frame rate is so high, you are not actually able to see most of the problems. And I will dare to say, many people would prefer to play this way than to play the Switch way, just to give you an example of what this technology can do. The same from Cyberpunk. Look at this. The reflections, everything looks so crisp and so nice, even though we are, reconstructing from such a low resolution. And once again, if you had the opportunity, or many people had the opportunity, they would probably prefer to play this game having overdrive mode and everything without having to, resort to other things. So in this case, all you have to do is use these technologies to reconstruct and frame generation. And the best part of it is that you don't have to sacrifice performance, because that's what DLSS is doing and what frame generation is doing on top of that. So imagine this game right here is basically made out of 5 or only 10% of the actual pixels being rendered on screen, because one frame is completely made out, and the reconstruction starts only from like 33% or 5% or 10% of the actual resolution. So imagine new consoles that are able to use this and use the actual power to improve performance and improve graphics instead of having to push for so many pixels. This starts as a joke, but the results are mind-blowing to me, because I was expecting a much worse situation here by combining this technology and to take DLSS to such a low standards. And look, there is the performance metric. I'm not lying to you when I say the performance, you're not losing on performance. We're above 200 FPS on this way. So imagine somebody with low hardware doing this. And to close this video, I'm going to use Avatar because I love the game, but the game is full of details. And I'm not using frame generation here. I'm using only DLSS Ultra Performance. But you can see on a game with so many details, so much vegetation, that the low resolution could have created a garble, could have created like a lot of weird things. But that's not what I'm seeing. And I am absolutely blown out by the way this game looks using DLSS Ultra Performance. We can still get a very pleasing image. We are above 100 FPS on these games too. So you can see the little details on the vegetation. You can look at everything. It's just the rocks, the sky, the trees, all the details are there. Of course, it's not as crisp as the 1080p, but the point is, it's not what we have now, it's what we're going to have in 5 years. So imagine if we can make this good now, then what we can make in 5 years, which means that probably with just very low hardware, we're going to be able to play good games. We can play this with a 4060, no issues whatsoever. So from my point of view, the important part here is to understand that the things that have been said, I was expecting so much worse. I was expecting, garble and stuff. And at the end, this video has just shut my mouth about these technologies and what they can do for me and for you that maybe doesn't have a 4090 but still wants to enjoy these games at a very nice performance. Is try because, you may be surprised. I hope you like this video. I hope you like this experiment. I'm just, I'm trying to bring a new vision to these technologies that many people seem to hate. But you can see here that you combine them and using them, and you can still get a very nice gaming experience without having to spend tons of money. As usual, if you like this video, please subscribe, like, and all those things that helps us little ones to grow on the YouTube. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one.